She gave him everything, her love, her loyalty, her life. But after 50 years of marriage, she discovered the unthinkable: he had a secret family. Now, she's not broken, she's rebuilding. This isn't heartbreak. It's her rebirth. Hello family, enjoy this relaxing moment with AfriTales 38. Remember to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comment section, and generously hit the like button because it means a lot to us. Please relax and enjoy as we dive in the story. The Hidden Truth. The Portrait of a Perfect Love. It was a bright spring morning when Eleanor Graham, now 76, sat by the wide window of her old wooden house in Vermont, staring at the painting above the fireplace. The portrait showed a young woman and a dashing man standing under a blooming cherry tree, hands held, eyes lost in each other's gaze. It was painted 50 years ago, on their wedding anniversary. She remembered the day like it was yesterday. Everything in her life had orbited around that man, Peter Graham. To anyone who knew them, Eleanor and Peter were the perfect couple. High school sweethearts. Married at 24. Through thick and thin, sickness and health, through lost jobs, miscarriages, and near bankruptcy, they stood together. Eleanor was the kind of woman who gave without question. She worked 2 jobs when Peter lost his. She sold her mother's jewelry to save their home. She turned down promotions just to keep time for him. Her life had been a soft echo of his desires, his dreams, and his needs. Yet, as she stared at that painting, something inside her cracked. The painting had always comforted her, but now it felt false. Like a memory rewritten. Something was off, and she couldn't ignore it anymore. It began with a letter. 3 days ago, a thick, yellowed envelope arrived at her doorstep. No return address. Just her name, Eleanor Graham, typed neatly on the front. Inside, folded carefully, was a black and white photograph. A woman, about her age, standing beside a man who looked exactly like Peter. The man's arm was around the woman. They were smiling, but not the kind of smile you give a stranger. It was warm, familiar, intimate. At first, she dismissed it as coincidence. Maybe a lookalike. But Peter had a distinctive scar above his left eyebrow, from a fall off his bike at age 12. The man in the photo had it too. She flipped the photo over. Scrawled in red ink were just 3 words. Ask him. Finally. She couldn't sleep that night. Or the next. Every smile, every whispered promise from Peter echoed through her mind like mocking ghosts. Could it be true? For 50 years, had she been nothing but a side story in his real life? She confronted him the next evening, over dinner. Peter, now gray-haired and frail, spooned soup slowly, as though every motion drained him. Eleanor placed the photo on the table. For a moment, he didn't react. Just stared. Then, quietly, he said, "So, you finally found out." No apology. No denial. Just a confirmation, and a long, soul-crushing silence. Eleanor's world shattered in that moment. Her identity, Mrs. Eleanor Graham, devoted wife, was ripped away like a mask. Who was she, if not the woman Peter loved? What does this mean, Peter? She asked, her voice shaking. Peter sighed, looked at the floor. Her name was Judith. We met in 1973. It wasn't supposed to go this long. Go this long. Eleanor whispered, her hands trembling. She was different. And I loved her too. I couldn't let either of you go. The words cut deeper than she thought possible. She had spent her life being enough for him, for their family. And now she found out she was just half of his truth. I gave you everything, she said. I gave up dreams. I sacrificed family. I loved you even when you didn't deserve it. Peter's only reply was a tired sigh. And I never asked you to. That was it. The man she thought was her soul's mirror, her lifelong partner, had lived a double life for 50 years, and she had never seen it. Or maybe, she hadn't wanted to see it. But now she would. The next morning, Eleanor packed her bags. She didn't tell Peter where she was going. She simply left a note. I'm not done yet. I'm going to find the truth. Because something about that photo, about that woman, felt like only the beginning of the story. Eleanor wasn't just heartbroken. She was curious, angry, alive. For the first time in years, the numb routine of her life was burning away. And as she boarded a train toward the address scribbled on the back of the photo, a small town in Maine, she knew one thing. This was not the end of her story. It was the beginning. The other woman. The train rumbled steadily toward the town of Rosefield, Maine. Eleanor sat by the window, her hands tightly clasped in her lap. Every few minutes, she glanced at the old photograph again. Judith. The name alone now echoed like a bell in her mind. She had done a little digging the night before she left. Rosefield was a quiet coastal town with fewer than 6,000 people. A place where everyone likely knew everyone. If Judith had lived there long enough, someone would know her. Upon arrival, Eleanor checked into a modest bed and breakfast. The innkeeper, a sweet woman in her 60s named Marla, noticed her visitor's nerves immediately. Looking for someone? Marla asked kindly as she helped Eleanor with her bags. Eleanor hesitated, then nodded. An old friend of my husband's. I think she lives around here. Judith, maybe in her 70s now. Last name unknown. Marla's eyes lit up in recognition. Judith Merrill. Lives up on Maple Lane. Alone since her husband passed, years ago. Keeps to herself, mostly. Eleanor's breath caught. It was her. It had to be. That evening, Eleanor stood outside a pale blue cottage tucked beneath towering trees. Wind rustled the leaves like a whisper warning her to turn back. But she didn't. Judith answered the door slowly, leaning on a cane. She was elegant in a quiet, weathered way, silver hair tied back neatly, eyes sharp with the wisdom of years. Her face went still the moment she saw Eleanor. You're Eleanor, aren't you? Eleanor's heart dropped. So you knew about me. Judith stepped aside. Come in. The inside of the home was cozy, filled with photos, plants, and paintings. Eleanor's eyes scanned the room quickly, and then she saw it. A framed photo on the mantelpiece, Judith and Peter. Smiling. Holding hands. The same photo Eleanor had received. So it's true, Eleanor whispered. Judith nodded slowly. I never wanted it this way. Then why did it last 50 years? Eleanor asked, anger creeping into her voice. Why didn't you leave him? Or tell me? Judith sat carefully on the sofa. Because he always said he'd leave you. He said you were unhappy. That you were more of a caretaker than a wife? And I believed him. I was a widow when I met him. Vulnerable. I didn't think I was stealing someone's husband, I thought I was saving a man from a loveless marriage. Eleanor stood frozen, her voice low. You were not saving him. You were helping him betray everything I gave him. Everything I was. Silence stretched between them. Judith finally spoke again. I believed him. But after the years went by, I knew. I knew he'd never leave you. And he never left me either. So I stopped asking questions. I told myself lies. Just like you probably did. That sentence struck something deep inside Eleanor. Because Judith was right. She had ignored the late nights. The unexplained trips. The emotional distance that had crept in slowly over the years like fog. She had chalked it up to work, age, stress, anything but another woman. Because to question it was to shatter the illusion she built her life around. I wasted my whole life, Eleanor said, her voice breaking. No, Judith said, surprising her. You loved with everything you had. That's not a waste. He was the coward. Not you. The two women sat in silence for a long time. And then, Eleanor asked something she hadn't dared to ask before. Did he ever love me? Judith looked at her sadly. I think he loved both of us. Just not enough to do the right thing. Eleanor felt tears in her eyes, but they weren't of grief. They were of clarity. For the first time, she wasn't blinded by Peter's lies or romantic illusions. She saw him now, not as the man she thought he was, but as a deeply flawed human being. Before leaving, Judith handed her a small, leather-bound journal. He wrote things. 4 years. About you. About me. Maybe it will help you understand. Or maybe it will just help you let go. Eleanor took it, her fingers shaking. Why now? Why send the photo? I didn't, Judith said. But I thought about it for years. Maybe someone else finally did what we both should have done long ago. That night, back at the inn, Eleanor lay in bed with the journal open in her lap. Inside were Peter's handwritten notes, thoughts, and confessions. Some pages were filled with regret. Others with longing. Some expressed guilt. Others didn't. One entry from 1992 stopped her cold. Some nights I watch Eleanor sleep and wonder if she knows. She's kind, loyal, the best person I've ever known, and I'm destroying her. But I also can't imagine a world without Judith. She gives me something Eleanor never could, the feeling of being free. But maybe I don't deserve either of them. Tears ran silently down Eleanor's face. He didn't deserve them. And now, he would lose one of them forever. The next morning, Eleanor made a decision. She wasn't going back home. Not yet. Not until she had uncovered everything. Because Peter's betrayal ran deeper than she ever imagined. And someone else, someone unknown, had sent that photo. Someone wanted her to find the truth. And she would. The third thread. Eleanor left Rosefield with the journal in her handbag and a storm in her chest. The truth wasn't just Peter and Judith. There was more, there had to be. Someone sent that photo. Judith denied it, and Peter certainly didn't. So who was behind the envelope that had shattered her world? Back home in Vermont, the house no longer felt like home. Every room whispered of a life she once thought she understood. She barely looked at Peter when she returned. He asked no questions. He sat in the same recliner, watching the same TV programs, like nothing had changed. But something had. She had. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her mind spun with thoughts, and then it struck her, the handwriting on the back of the photo. She had seen it before. She went straight to the attic the next morning, rifling through boxes of letters and cards. Birthday wishes, Christmas notes, anniversary greetings from over the years. One stood out, a card from 2009, addressed to Peter, signed by someone named MH. The handwriting was unmistakably the same as the one on the photo, neat, sharp, slightly right-slanted. Eleanor's fingers trembled. She'd never questioned it before. Peter had said it was a cousin. But now, she had reason to doubt everything. She returned to the journal. Toward the back, tucked between 2 pages, she found a small photograph of a young man, no older than 30, with Peter standing beside him. Both were smiling, Peter's arm slung around his shoulder like a father's might be. On the back, it read. Michael, 1998, Montauk. Michael. MH. A cousin. No. A son. Eleanor's heart dropped. Her skin tingled cold. She went downstairs to Peter and placed the photo in front of him. He blinked at it. His face changed, guilt, fear, then a tired surrender. I didn't think you'd find that, he said. Is he yours? She asked, her voice low. Peter nodded slowly. Judith was pregnant. I didn't know at first. She raised him alone. Eleanor felt like the floor was tilting beneath her. So while I was losing our baby, you had a child with her. I never meant for it to happen like that, Peter whispered. Eleanor's chest ached, not just from heartbreak but betrayal on a level deeper than she thought possible. She had mourned the loss of their unborn child in silence, year after year. Peter had comforted her, cried with her, and all the while, he had another child growing in someone else's arms. I gave everything for you, she said, through tears. And you gave your name, your blood, your love to them. Peter didn't deny it. He simply lowered his head. That night, Eleanor did something she had never done in her life. She searched for someone not to find closure, but to confront. With the help of online directories, she found Michael Henry, listed in New York. A professor of literature. She wrote down his number. For 3 days she stared at it. Then she called. "Hello." A calm male voice answered. Eleanor took a breath. "Michael. My name is Eleanor Graham. I believe I was married to your father." There was a long pause. Then, softly, "I was wondering when you'd find me." "You sent the photo," she said. "Yes." "Why?" "Because you deserve to know. My mother never sent it because she thought it would destroy you. I sent it because you were destroyed already, just didn't know it yet." Eleanor swallowed hard. "You've known about me this whole time." "Yes," he said. "My father told me about you. I hated him for it, sometimes. Hated how he made 2 women feel like halves of the same lie. But you didn't deserve to die without the truth. You deserve to live with it." Eleanor was silent for a long time. Finally, she asked, "What do you want from me?" "Nothing," Michael said. "Only to say I'm sorry for all he did. I watched my mother cry for years. And then I learned about you, and I realized how big the damage was." Then he added something that pierced Eleanor's soul. "And yet, you stayed." The words hit like a wave. She had stayed. Out of love. Out of loyalty. Out of fear. Out of duty. But also out of denial. She had stayed because she couldn't imagine herself outside of Peter. Because she thought that's what love meant. But now, she had a choice. The next morning, Eleanor packed her things again. But not like before. This time, there was no shaking hand. No heartbreak. Only resolve. Peter didn't stop her when she left. He only asked one question: "Where will you go?" She looked him in the eye and replied, "Somewhere I can finally start being me." And with that, she stepped outside, not into the ruins of her past, but into the blank pages of a new chapter. The next stop. New York. She had one more conversation to have with Michael. And then, she would decide how her story ends. The Son of Silence. New York City was a different world from the quiet towns Eleanor knew. The buildings stretched endlessly, and the people moved with purpose. Yet amid the noise, Eleanor felt strangely calm. She wasn't here to chase ghosts anymore, she was here to face them. She found Michael's university with ease. It was a small liberal arts college tucked into a quiet Brooklyn neighborhood. The receptionist smiled as Eleanor introduced herself. "I'm here to see Professor Michael Henry." The woman dialed an extension, nodded, then said, "He's expecting you. Office 314, 3rd floor." As Eleanor climbed the stairs, her heart pounded, but not from fear. It was anticipation, maybe even curiosity. What did the son of her husband and his mistress look like now? What kind of man had grown from the roots of betrayal? She knocked once. "Come in," a voice called. Michael stood as she entered. He was tall, dark-haired like Peter had been in his youth, with piercing blue eyes, her husband's eyes. But there was something softer in him. Something thoughtful. He extended his hand. "Eleanor." She shook it. "Michael. Thank you for seeing me." He gestured to a chair. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "I wasn't sure either," she replied. "But I needed to look into the eyes of the person who cracked open the truth." Michael smiled sadly. "Then let's talk about it." They spoke for hours. Michael told her everything, from how he learned Peter was his father, to how Judith had struggled to raise him alone while Peter dropped in and out of their lives like a passing shadow. Judith had loved Peter deeply, but she had also grown bitter, tired of lies. Michael, on the other hand, had learned early how to keep secrets. "I wanted to hate him," Michael said. "But I couldn't. Because when he was there, he was a good father. He listened. He gave advice. He taught me to fish, to write. But then he'd disappear again. And I'd watch my mother cry herself to sleep. Eleanor nodded, quietly. And I was the one he came home to. Always. Do you hate him? Michael asked gently. Eleanor thought for a long time before answering. I used to think hate was the opposite of love, she said. Now I think it's something else entirely. I don't hate him. I hate the years I lost being less than I was meant to be. Michael seemed to understand. So, what happens now? I don't know, she admitted. But I don't want to be angry forever. I want to find peace, even if I have to build it myself. He handed her something from his desk. A small photo album. Mom made this before she died, he said. It's full of old photos, some with Peter, most just of us. She wanted to leave it for someone. I think she meant for it to go to you. Eleanor opened it slowly. Page after page showed Judith holding baby Michael, smiling beside a small birthday cake, walking him to school. Some pages had Peter in them, but not many. And in each, Judith's eyes had a quiet strength. She was strong, Eleanor said. Michael nodded. She was a survivor. Like you. They sat in silence for a few minutes before Eleanor said, I spent 50 years being a wife. Now I want to find out who I am without that title. Michael looked at her with admiration. If you want to stay in the city for a while, I know someone renting out a cozy place nearby. Just for a few weeks. It's quiet. Peaceful. She smiled softly. That sounds perfect. The apartment was small but bright, filled with sunlight and city sounds. Eleanor spent the next days walking through neighborhoods, eating in small cafes, watching street musicians. She didn't speak much. She didn't need to. The silence was healing. One morning, she sat in a park and pulled out Peter's journal again. She flipped to the final pages. I know one day Eleanor will find out. And I know that when she does, I will lose her forever. She was the best thing I ever had. But I lived selfishly. I loved them both. And maybe that's the worst thing a man can do, try to keep two hearts and end up breaking them both. If you're reading this, Eleanor, I'm sorry. You were always more than enough. It was me who wasn't. For the first time, Eleanor didn't cry. Instead, she closed the journal, placed it on the bench beside her, and smiled. A gentle, tired smile. Because now she knew the truth, not just about Peter, but about herself. She wasn't broken. She was awake. And her story wasn't over yet. Would you like me to continue with chapter 5, the final chapter? The woman in the mirror. Spring had just begun to bloom again in Vermont when Eleanor returned. The trees outside her old home were budding, the same way her heart felt, tentative, still scarred, but opening. She stood on the front porch, staring at the door she had walked through 1,000 times before. But this time, she felt different. Lighter. Stronger. Peter was sitting at the dining table when she entered. He looked older now, more fragile than before. But his eyes lit up the second he saw her. You came back, he said. I didn't come back for you, Eleanor said gently, setting her keys down. I came back for me. To collect what's mine. My things. My books. My memories. Not the lies. Peter nodded slowly. I deserve that. You deserve the silence, she replied, calmly. You've had 50 years of my loyalty. I take what's left of my life now. He lowered his head, no defense in his voice. I read your letter. About Michael. Judith. Everything. I thought, maybe you'd never speak to me again. I almost didn't, she admitted. But then I realized I didn't want to spend my life running from pain. I wanted to walk through it. That's the only way to get free. She walked upstairs and began to pack her remaining things. Her wedding dress, still preserved in a yellowing box. Her photo albums, some she tossed, others she kept. Letters she'd written to Peter during his business trips, folded neatly like relics of a forgotten world. By sunset, she was ready to leave. Peter met her at the door. "Where will you go now?" he asked. She smiled. "Anywhere I want." 3 months later, Eleanor stood in a gallery in Soho, surrounded by strangers admiring her latest work. For the first time in decades, she had started painting again, something she hadn't done since college, before marriage, before Peter. The painting at the center of the gallery was titled "The Woman in the Mirror." It showed a woman standing in front of a mirror, her reflection younger, freer, smiling with eyes wide open. A small plaque beneath it read, "Dedicated to every woman who gave everything and forgot she was enough all along." Michael stood nearby, sipping wine, proudly introducing her to curious visitors. "She's the artist," he said, smiling. "That's my friend Eleanor." They had become close, not like mother and son, but like old souls who had seen the worst and chosen healing instead of hate. Michael had helped her build a new life. He introduced her to an art collective, helped her find a cozy studio apartment, and even taught her how to order food online, something she'd never done before. He had lost a father, yes. But gained something else. So had she. A letter arrived one afternoon. It was from Peter. "Eleanor. I don't expect forgiveness. I know I never deserved the love you gave so freely. But I want you to know, I see you now. I see what I stole from you. I see what you became despite it. Thank you for the years. Thank you for the strength. And thank you for showing me, even in the end, what real courage looks like. With regret and all. Peter." She didn't reply. She didn't need to. Some endings don't require conversation. Only closure. 1 year later, Eleanor sat on a bench by the Hudson River, sketchbook in her lap, wind in her silver hair. She often came here to think. To breathe. She no longer cried when she thought of Peter. She no longer felt hollow. She felt grateful. Grateful that life, even after betrayal, offered second chances. Grateful for the art that returned to her hands like an old friend. Grateful for Michael, for his honesty, his kindness, and his willingness to build something new from brokenness. She flipped to a fresh page and wrote in her neat cursive, "I thought I was the wife of a liar. Then I learned I was a woman with a future. I thought I was a background character. Now I know I was always the author." Asterisk. She looked out across the water, the sun beginning to set in the distance. This wasn't a happy ending, not in the fairy tale sense. It was something better. A true beginning. Thanks for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe and share.